Once a year, the little town of Sundarpur held its grand temple fair. Oh, what a fair it was! There were garlands of marigold and stalls of hot jalebis. There were jugglers and drummers and bright paper kites. And from villages all around the people came in their very finest clothes to pray at the temple and enjoy the day. Among the crowd that morning came Seth Danraj, the richest merchant in all the district. He wore silken robes of gold and green, rings on every finger, and a turban with a great glittering jewel. He walked with his nose in the air, quite certain that he was the most important person at the whole fair. And not far behind came a very different visitor, a little boy named Mohan. Mohan was the son of a poor washerman. His clothes were patched, his feet were bare. In his hand, he held one small, warm packet of puffed rice, which was all the food he had brought and all that his family could spare. Now, near the temple steps there sat an old beggar. His clothes were nothing but dusty gray rags. His hair was wild and white, his face was thin, and beside him lay an empty begging bowl. As the fine folk hurried past, he held out a trembling hand and asked, in a soft, cracked voice, for just a little something to eat. Most people simply stepped around him, holding their fine clothes away as if the poor old man were dirt beneath their feet. And when proud Seth Danraj came sweeping by, the beggar lifted his bowl and asked him too. "Kind sir, I have not eaten in 2 days. Could you spare even a coin, even a crumb?" Seth Danraj stopped and looked the beggar up and down with great disgust and curled his lip. "Out of my way, you filthy creature! Look at you, all rags and dust. A worthless, good-for-nothing beggar. People like you should not be allowed at a fine fair like this. Be gone!" And he gave a haughty sniff and swept past in his golden robes without a backward glance, very pleased with how grand and important he had sounded. The old beggar bowed his head and said nothing. But little Mohan had seen it all, and his small heart ached. He came shyly up to the old man, and he looked down at his own little packet of puffed rice, the only food he had. He was hungry himself, very hungry, but the old man, he thought, had not eaten in 2 whole days. "Here, grandfather, it is not much. It is only puffed rice. But please, you take it. You need it far more than I do." "Are you sure, my child? This is your own meal. Will you not go hungry?" "I shall be all right. My mother says that food shared tastes the sweetest of all. Please, eat." And he placed every last grain of his puffed rice into the old man's bowl, and patted his thin hand, and sat with him a while, so that he would not eat alone. Now, just then, a hush fell over the fair, for the old beggar rose slowly to his feet, and as he stood, a strange and wonderful thing happened. His dusty rags seemed to shimmer and fall away, and there stood in their place a tall and noble figure in robes of pure shining white, with a face full of gentle light. For the beggar was no beggar at all. He was a great and holy sage, who each year walked among the fair-goers in disguise, to see what was truly in their hearts. The whole crowd gasped and fell silent. Seth Danraj, who had not gone far, turned round and went pale as milk, and his jeweled turban suddenly seemed a very foolish thing. The sage looked slowly across all the people, and then his kind eyes rested upon little Mohan, who was staring with his mouth open in wonder. "Hear me. Today I came among you dressed in rags, and I held out my bowl, and I watched. And I saw a rich man in robes of gold, who has a great heap of treasure, but whose heart is as empty as my begging bowl. And I saw a poor barefoot child who had but one small meal in all the world, and who gave me every grain of it with a smile." He laid his hand gently upon Mohan's head. "This child is richer than the richest merchant in the land, for he has a heart of pure gold. And you, who judged me by my dusty rags, and called me worthless, remember this, all of you, to the end of your days. Fine clothes can wrap an empty heart, and humble rags can hide a heart of gold. Never, ever judge a soul by what your eyes can see." And he blessed little Mohan, and blessed all who had learned the lesson. And then, like a soft morning mist in the sun, the holy sage was gone. Where he had sat there lay only a small heap of marigold flowers, fresh and golden and sweet. From that day, Seth Dhanraj was a humbler man, and never again did he sneer at a beggar. And little Mohan, though he was still poor, walked home that evening, the happiest and richest boy in all of Sundarpur, for he had learned that the truest treasure of all is a kind and generous heart. So remember, dear children, never judge anyone by their clothes or their riches or the way they look. The grandest person may have the smallest heart, and the humblest may have the greatest. Look always for the gold that is inside. This is today's story. We'll meet again in another interesting story.